Spencer Weinstein, introducing the University of Massachusetts Amherst team for the Where in the World Challenge. We have focused our project on the best and worst places to live in 2025 regarding water resources. We split our project into 5 categories. Chloe is covering water for food production. Steve is covering groundwater sustainability. Ronan is focusing on access to clean water. Dan is covering waterborne disease, and I'm focusing on overall water quality. Each of us have determined a best and a worst place to live in 2025 for our respective categories based upon UN data.
Hi, my name's Chloe, and I'll be reporting on the issue of water for food in 2 contrasting locations. Just to outline the intensity of the issue, with 7 billion people to feed on the earth today, this is projected to increase to 9 billion in 2050, and with an added 60% more food will be required at this time. According to the UN, this would follow with a 19% increase of agricultural water consumption by 2050 also. Naturally, almost everything we eat requires water to grow. 1 apple requires 70 litres of water. 150 grams of beef steak needs 2,025 litres of water, and typically humans drink 2 to 4 litres of water a day and eat 2,000 to 5,000 litres of virtual water embedded in food. Demographically, with this increase in population and subsequently food demand, there will be a rise in the global meat consumption from 37 kilograms per capita in 2000 to 52 kilograms in 2030. These figures are striking, and not only are 85% of the world's population living in the driest half of the planet, but the increased demand of water for irrigation and food production constitutes one of the greatest pressures on freshwater resources. The USA, as one of the current largest crop producers, is currently subject to severe droughts and lack of rainfall to the south of the country. The IPCC has predicted with high confidence that the impact of climate change will continue to impact the USA, and summer flows are likely to drop 80% by 2060, adding to the growing problem. Views of the world have stated that the world may be forced into vegetarianism if no sustainable action is taken, as the USA wastes 30% of its food produced every year. Looking at a contrasting example through India, although very much a developing country, agriculture consumes 87% of India's water resource, but maintains as one of the highest producers worldwide. India, due to low-lying fertile land, is able to hold the label of the world's largest freshwater user in the world. Most importantly, according to Nexus, India, by 2050, will see a 20% increase in dry spells in central regions, but there will also be a general increase of 30% of precipitation in the Himalayas, creating increased ice melt and potential flooding. The USA, on the other hand, has seen a drought since 2012, leading to food price swells of 2.6% month on month. With America being the largest producer of corn, to which the world relies highly upon, high temperatures and little rain are causing growing concern. Subsequently, India's geographical advantages of increased water supplies and low-lying land may provide obvious initial benefits for the population in the long term, but they will suffer capabilities of feeding their own people due to the added stress of developed countries and their import needs. However, with increasing food prices in the USA, there is a potential for a severe first world food crisis.
Good morning, I'm Stephen Bailey, and I'll be presenting on groundwater resources. One of the greatest challenges facing the international community in years to come will be managing the global freshwater supply. 97% of that freshwater supply is buried beneath the ground in permeable water-bearing formations called aquifers. More than 50% of the world's population drinks and irrigates their crops with groundwater every day. Some of this water is replenished by precipitation, but with a rapidly growing population and an increasing agricultural demand, groundwater is far exceeding aquifer recharge rate. Utilizing data obtained from the UN International Groundwater Resources Assessment Center and the Internationally Shared Aquifer Resources Management Agency, I will assess that Libya faces the greatest challenge to groundwater management, while Canada will be the best place to live based on available groundwater resources. According to some estimates of the world's groundwater supply, there is enough groundwater to cover the entire Earth's surface to a depth of 120 meters. Unfortunately, this massive reservoir is not evenly distributed throughout the world, leaving countries at a disadvantage. The North African country of Libya is located in the heart of the Sahara, with 95% of its land area being covered in desert. Virtually no surface water means that groundwater is absolutely essential for the Libyan population. Average annual rainfall for the country as a whole is 26 millimeters, with about 93% of the land surface receiving less than 100 millimeters per year. The total abstraction of 200 million cubic meters per year is about 8 times the annual renewable groundwater resources, and therefore Libya depends heavily on non-renewable fossil groundwater. The coastal aquifers are the only ones that are being recharged by rainfall, but uncontrolled groundwater development from these aquifers exceeds the annual replenishment. This has caused a severe water level decline and seawater encroachment, which makes the coastal groundwater resources almost unusable because of their high salinity. The Great Man-Made River Project is an ongoing development designed to eventually transport 300 million cubic meters of fossil water from the Libyan south to the heavily populated northern coast. Unfortunately, the estimated total water requirement to support basic food self-sufficiency and to meet the municipal water demand of the 12 million Libyans in the year 2025 is estimated to range between 10.5 and 16.4 cubic kilometers per year. When the GMRP is fully operational, the total amount of water available for all uses, assuming that the present groundwater production equipment will be maintained until 2025, will be in the order of 6.5 cubic kilometers per year, which will barely cover 50% of the total water requirement. Further complicating Libya's groundwater resource issues are the presence of 3 transboundary aquifers. These shared aquifers mean that Libya must try to co-manage its already limited groundwater supply with other Saharan countries in desperate need of water, including Sudan, Chad, Egypt, Algeria, and Tunisia. This combination of factors will make Libya one of the worst places to live in 2025 based on water resources. If you're looking for a great place to live in 2025 based on water resources, it will be tough to beat the country encompassing approximately 7% of the world's renewable fresh water. Canada has the luxury of being the second largest freshwater producer in the world, meaning less than a third of its population must rely on fresh groundwater for domestic use. Groundwater reliance is limited to only a few small provinces, including Prince Edward Island and New Brunswick. Just because most Canadians don't need groundwater doesn't mean that it's not there. On top of a vast surface water reservoir, only 8 countries in the world produce more groundwater than Canada. An abundance of precipitation allows the majority of Canadian agriculture to be accomplished by rain-fed irrigation, further reducing the stresses on already vast groundwater supply. The geographic positioning of Canada's groundwater resources allows for simplicity of management, with only one major aquifer extending outside of political boundaries. The abundance and spatial distribution of groundwater makes Canada one of the greatest places to live in 2025 based on water resources.
Hello, my name is Ronan, and I'm presenting on access to clean water. The issue is that access to clean water is not universal, and water is absolutely essential for human life. Many find that access to clean water is a daily struggle, and they must travel long distances to acquire it. This is a 2004 map from the United Nations Environmental Program of access to clean water by percentage of the total population. In the dark blue countries, 95% or more of the population had access to an improved water source. In the light blue countries, 83 to 95% had access to an improved water source. The global average, as of 2004, is 83%. The yellow countries on the map had 65 to 83% access to an improved water source, and the red countries had less than 65% access. As you can see, Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia have serious water access issues, whereas North America and Europe have access to clean water that is well above the global average. There is a direct correlation between water quality and poverty, which is one of the main reasons why developing countries are struggling to obtain consistent economic development. The water access issue is serious across Southern Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa and Southern Asia. According to Amy Pickering and Jennifer Deems of Stanford University, one country that will have the worst water access rates by 2025 is Ethiopia. Only 7% of people in this landlocked Eastern African country have a water source located on their property. And the mean one-way walking time for an Ethiopian to access clean water was 46 minutes. Ineffective government, lack of economic opportunities, and lack of development of water technologies are all factors as to why Ethiopia has and will have some of the world's worst water clean access by 2025. The water access issue is not as serious in much of Europe and North America. One country that has great water access and will continue to have great water access in 2025 is Germany. Located in Central Europe, Germany has a 100% rate of access to clean water as of 2012, both in urban and rural areas, according to the World Bank. Germany is a well-developed country that has a 75% urban population and a strong central government and economy. Widely considered the strength behind the European Union, Germany is a leader in the world in many different ways, including their perfect rate of access to clean water, which according to the World Bank has been the case for at least 20 years.
Hi, I'm Dan, and I'm reporting on the best and worst places to live in 2025 in terms of waterborne disease. The spread of waterborne diseases is a crucial facet of water geography. Some regions of the world are characterized by high transmissions of these diseases while others are spared. Since many countries have little to no risk of waterborne disease already, the title of Best Region will be given to a nation making great strides towards disease relief. The title of Worst will go to a region projected to stagnate. By 2025, one of the worst places to live in terms of waterborne disease will be the Democratic Republic of the Congo, or the DRC. According to the CIA World Factbook, the DRC has a population of 77 million. The climate is tropical, with heat and humidity over much of the country, especially during the half-year-long wet seasons. The Congo River Basin spreads throughout nearly the entire country. The eastern edge is lined by several of the Rift Valley lakes. According to WHO, two major water-related diseases are malaria and cholera. The CDC states that, quote, malaria occurs mostly in poor tropical and subtropical areas of the world. The mosquito is the vector for the disease. Much of the population of Africa, especially the DRC, is at high risk of malaria thanks to its high mosquito populations, its long periods of warm weather, and a general condition of poverty. Especially given the wet geography and climate outlined above, the DRC is of elevated concern. The World Health Organization's Global Health Observatory Data Repository reveals a concerning situation. According to its compiled data, the DRC's number of malaria cases increased from 2006, when 2,000 cases were reported, to 1.9 million cases in 2009, 2.4 million cases in 2010, and 4.5 million cases in 2011. In fact, according to a WHO graphic, the DRC had the most cases of malaria of all the countries in the world in 2011. The Guardian reports that in 2009, the DRC led the world with its 21,168 malaria fatalities, giving the disease a fatality rate of 31.67 per 100,000 in the population. WHO's country profile of the DRC shows the per 1,000 case rate only slightly leveling since 2011. The transmission rate per 1,000 jumped significantly from 2006 to 2012. Funding for preventive measures has increased since earlier in the 2000s, but only slightly since 2011. No funding is coming from the government. In addition, anticipated rise in global temperature is expected to subsequently lead to a spread of mosquito populations. The combination of lack of statistically evident preventive measures, lack of government funding, and of climate change expectations makes the DRC an area of high concern for malaria impact. Another specifically waterborne disease is cholera, which, according to WHO, occurs most where water supplies, sanitation, food safety, and hygiene practices are inadequate. In a war-torn, unstable, and impoverished country like the DRC, with little government action of significance taking place, these are unlikely to be adequate in the near future. The WHO Global Health Observatory Data Repository has published records of annual cholera epidemics in the DRC since 1979. As shown in this graphic made from the WHO data, cholera cases are still highly variable in this country, a characteristic implying inadequate or non-existent efforts towards cholera control on the part of the government. In addition, the U.S. National Library of Medicine's National Center for Biotechnology Information has studied cholera in the lakes region of the eastern DRC and determined that in the 2000s, quote, lakes were the sources of outbreaks and demonstrate the inadequacy of the strategy used to combat cholera. Given trends of political instability, the likelihood that meaningful efforts to combat this illness will be enacted are slim. In addition, the UN Development Programme's Human Development Indices for the DRC are not hopeful. Beginning at 0.286 in 1980, the DRC reached a slight peak in HDI in 1990 with a rating of 0.297. This fell to 0.234 in 2000, but has risen steadily to 0.304 by 2012. This leaves the DRC tied in last place in the world. The UN also predicts that even with a low fertility rate, the population of the DRC will reach 89.2 million by 2025. The combination of population increase, lasting instability, poor quality of life, lack of government action, and the environmental effect of warming will have a negative impact on efforts to control waterborne disease in this country by 2025. At the other end of the spectrum, the country of Côte d'Ivoire will most likely improve in terms of waterborne disease risk through 2025. This nation has a population of 23 million, fewer wet and humid regions than the DRC, even some semi-arid areas, and a much shorter wet season. Drununculiasis is an infliction inherently linked to water. WHO outlines the transmission of the disease as follows. The guinea worm parasite travels through the body and emerges through tissue, causing intense pain and discomfort. The remedy for this is often to soak the afflicted area in water. This releases larvae into the water that can subsequently be ingested by individuals drinking from that source, and thus the infection spreads. The infection has been nearly eradicated throughout Africa. Beginning even in the 1980s, Côte d'Ivoire was one of only a few nations actively looking out for and fighting the affliction, according to the NCBI. The government, quote, reduced the disease from 4,971 cases in 1976 to only 592 cases in 1985. Thanks to simple surveillance techniques and hygienic healthcare, the country is now free of drununculiasis. The map on the left notes that Côte d'Ivoire has far fewer cases of malaria per year than any of its neighbors. UNICEF reporting implies that great efforts have been made in this country to combat the disease. This is reflected in the WHO country profiles. Compare the number of deaths per 1,000 from malaria in Côte d'Ivoire to the number of deaths in the DRC. Cholera is also not of great concern in this country. As shown in this graph of data from the WHO data repository, cholera in Côte d'Ivoire has decreased significantly and is stably low. All in all, Côte d'Ivoire is becoming a much safer place to live in terms of waterborne and water-related illness, and should continue that way through 2025. The World Bank reports that 80% of the population has access to clean water, up from 76% in 1990. Meanwhile, only 46% of people in the DRC have access to clean water. In addition, according to the UN Development Programme, the Human Development Index in Côte d'Ivoire has been increasing reliably over the past 30 years, from 0.348 in 1980 to 0.432 in 2012. These assignments of best and worst are not set in stone. Obviously, both countries still have much work to do to continue the fight against waterborne disease. But in the end, it is a question of geography. Simply due to its position and topography, the DRC is much more vulnerable to continued onsets of waterborne disease. Many countries that have completely eradicated such diseases can attribute their successes to less vulnerable geographies.
Hi, I'm Spencer, reporting on the best and worst places to live in the year 2025 regarding water quality. As one of the most water-insecure countries, Turkmenistan, a largely desert country, is in the midst of a major water shortage and is predicted to completely run out of water within the next 10 years. Since the 1991 breakup of the Soviet Union, the Central Asian water system controlling the region's water resources has fallen into disarray. Once regulated by dams and hydroelectric energy facilities, Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan provided water from two major rivers, the Sir Darya and the Amu Darya, to their downstream neighbor Turkmenistan in an operation enforced by the Soviet Union. Due to current religious and political divides between the countries, upstream countries rarely release enough water past the dams to sustain the downstream countries. Over the past 50 years, Turkmenistan's per capita water availability has decreased by 50%. Due to the country's vast cotton industry, 95% of all water resources are allocated to agriculture. According to UN data, Turkmenistan's renewable internal freshwater resources per capita in cubic meters has decreased from 361.9 in 1992 to 275.1 in 2011. Additionally, the proportion of the total population using improved drinking water sources has also decreased from 86% in 1994 to 71% in 2011. If the trends continue in the same direction that they've been going for the past 20 years, there's a very real possibility that Turkmenistan will be completely out of water by the year 2025. As shown in the figure, Turkmenistan had in 1995 withdrawn between 20 and 40% of its total available water. In 2025, it is predicted that the country will have withdrawn more than 40% of its total available water and close to 100% of that value. In areas that do still have water, most of it has high levels of salinity as it has been contaminated from agricultural runoff. In 2004, after distributing just 20% of the loan, the World Bank closed its water and sanitation project in Turkmenistan. The project was aimed at funding small desalination plants and a larger water treatment plant, but very few of the places were actually funded. If Turkmenistan does not attempt to better mitigate its water resources, then in 2025, residents are likely to find themselves without any water source. It's not all bad news, though, for the future of the world's water. In the 2010 Water Security Risk Index, released by Maplecroft, a global risk analysis firm, Iceland was found to have the most secure supply of clean water. According to the European Environment Agency, Iceland experiences an average of 2,000 millimeters of rain per year. As a sparsely populated country, Iceland has the highest renewable freshwater availability per person of any European country. Just 0.1% of the country's total water resources have been used. UN data shows that 100% of Iceland's residents have access to an improved water source, and 100% of the population is also using an improved drinking source. Due to Iceland's vast freshwater system, hydropower and geothermal power are highly profitable industries. Because of the country's shift over the past century from using oil, coal, and gas for heating to using hot geothermal water, Iceland's annual carbon dioxide emissions have decreased by 45%. Thus, the country's air quality has greatly improved as well. Iceland is home to many environmental activists, all of whom are focused on ensuring that the country's water resources remain sustainable and accessible to the public. With its secure supply of clean water and environmental activism mindset, Iceland is the overall best place to live in 2025 regarding quality of water resources.